In a lively frog village, nestled among lily pads and reeds, a towering structure reached into the sky. The air buzzed with excitement as frogs of all sizes gathered for a special event. Today was the day of the grand race, a challenge that would test the bravery and determination of every frog in the village. The small frogs lined up at the starting line, their eyes shining with anticipation. They hopped from one foot to another, eager to begin their ascent. The crowd of spectators grew louder, their encouraging croaks filling the air. "Go! You can do it!" shouted one frog, waving a tiny flag. "Show us your bravery!" cheered another, bouncing up and down with enthusiasm. "We believe in you!" croaked a group of elderly frogs, their wrinkled faces beaming with pride. The frog referee, wearing a striped vest and a whistle around his neck, stepped forward. He raised a webbed hand, silencing the crowd. "The race will begin shortly," he announced in a booming voice. "Whoever reaches the top of the tower first will be the winner." The competing frogs took their positions, their small bodies coiled and ready to leap. They eyed the towering structure before them, a mix of excitement and nervousness visible in their wide eyes. "Ready, ... double quotes," the referee called out, building the tension. "Go!" With a chorus of determined croaks, the frogs sprang into action. They jumped up, their sticky toes gripping the tower walls as they began their ascent. The race was on, and the frogs leaped upwards, battling against gravity with every hop. At first, the frogs were bursting with excitement. They believed that they could reach the top, their spirits high as they climbed higher and higher. But as they ascended further, the voices from the crowd below began to change. The once encouraging spectators started shouting discouraging words. Their croaks turned from cheers to jeers, filling the air with doubt. "It's too high," one frog yelled. "No frog has ever reached the top." "You're too small to complete this," another called out, shaking his head. "This race is impossible," a group of frogs chanted in unison. The climbing frogs began to hesitate. Some slowed their pace, while others lost their grip entirely. The doubt from below seemed to seep into their very bones. One frog, panting heavily, croaked out, I don't think I can do this." Another frog, her legs shaking with exhaustion, muttered, "Maybe they're right. Maybe this is too hard." As the negative words continued to rain down from below, many frogs began to give up. They dropped back to the ground, their dreams of victory shattered by the weight of doubt. But amidst the chaos and discouragement, one frog, small, swift, and focused, kept climbing. This tiny frog seemed undeterred by the doubts shouted from below. With determination in its eyes, it continued its ascent, overcoming every obstacle in its path. The tiny frog climbed higher and higher, its movements quick and precise. It navigated around tricky spots and pushed through fatigue, never once looking down or showing signs of giving up. As the other frogs watched in awe, the tiny frog neared the top of the tower. The crowd below fell silent, their eyes fixed on the lone climber. Finally, with one last mighty leap, the tiny frog reached the summit. The frog leader, standing at the base of the tower, let out a joyous croak. "Unbelievable!" he exclaimed, his voice filled with wonder. "We have a winner! The tiny frog has conquered the impossible!" The crowd erupted in cheers and amazement. Frogs jumped and croaked, celebrating the incredible feat they had just witnessed. The tiny frog stood atop the tower, basking in the glow of its achievement. As the excitement settled, curiosity began to spread through the village. How had this small frog succeeded where so many others had failed? What was the secret to its triumph? The answer, when revealed, was both simple and profound. The tiny frog was swift in its movements, quick in its decisions, and most importantly, it was deaf. The words of doubt and discouragement that had deterred the other frogs had never reached its ears. This revelation sparked a wave of realization among the frogs. They understood that the tiny frog had won not because of sheer strength or size, but because it had remained focused on its goal. It had stayed determined, never allowing the negativity of others to slow it down. The story of the tiny frog's triumph spread quickly through the village and beyond. It became a legend, told to young tadpoles as they grew, teaching them a valuable lesson about the power of perseverance and self-belief. The frogs learned that the words of others can have a profound impact on our journey. They can lift us up, inspiring us to reach new heights, or they can drag us down, filling us with doubt and fear. But ultimately, it is our own belief and determination that define our success. The tiny frog had proven that nothing is truly impossible if you believe in yourself. It had shown that size doesn't matter when your heart is full of courage and your mind is set on achieving your goals. From that day forward, the frog village changed. The tower that had once seemed an insurmountable challenge now stood as a symbol of what could be achieved with unwavering focus and determination. Frogs of all sizes began to challenge themselves, taking on tasks they once thought impossible. They learned to block out negative voices and instead listen to the voice within that said, "You can do this!" The annual tower climbing race became a celebration of perseverance rather than a test of strength. Frogs cheered each other on, offering words of encouragement instead of doubt. They understood that every frog had the potential to reach great heights, both literally and physically. As time passed, the legend of the tiny frog continued to inspire. It reminded everyone that success often comes to those who refuse to give up, who keep pushing forward even when others say it can't be done. The frog village flourished, becoming known far and wide as a place where dreams were nurtured and achievements celebrated. Visitors came from distant ponds and streams to learn the secret of the tiny frog's success, and so the legacy of the tiny frog lived on, a testament to the power of belief, determination, and the strength that comes from within. It served as a reminder to all that the greatest obstacles we face are often the limitations we place on ourselves. In the end, the tiny frog's triumph was more than just a victory in a race. It was a victory over doubt, a triumph of the spirit, and a lesson that would echo through the frog village for generations to come. As the sun set each evening, casting a golden glow over the village and its famous tower, the frogs would gather to share stories and dreams. And always, without fail, someone would recount the tale of the tiny frog who climbed to the top, reminding everyone that with belief in oneself, any frog, no matter how small, could achieve greatness.